born in 1925 in Melbourne. My father was Lawrence Gray, my mother Edith. My father was a banker and fairly clever at his trade. I'm one of two. My brother, who was older than myself, there was another girl who died in between. And I can remember from when I was about 2 and we moved to Harrow in Victoria to live. I have no idea what that fox terrier's dog name was, but I know that none of the family liked him. He barked and he yapped and he ran and he jumped. But the dog I had that I loved was a collie, which I was given as a second birthday present when we lived in Harrow. And he grew into a beautiful dog, absolutely beautiful. Lovely cream and tan and fawn. I was very jealous of my brother. He was extremely clever and topped everything he ever did. And I refused to go to Coburg High School because he had been ducked from Coburg High School. And I went to Melbourne High School, the Robertson Girls High School it was called, and gained my leaving certificate from there. Alan gave up his ordinary office work and started doing this housing, and he was also working in photography at the same time. He had a studio where he took pictures of people and things, and he invented a lot of methods of doing things in photography in those days because there were all sorts of things that you couldn't do in photography, and he invented ways around them. I like singing. I learnt singing in Melbourne after I'd left school and belonged to the Gilbert and Sullivan Society. I used to sing with them.
3 little maids from school are we, but as a schoolgirl well can be, filled to the brim with girlish glee. 3 little maids from school, everything is a source of fun. Nobody's safe for we care for none. Life is a joke that's just begun. 3 little maids from school. 3 little maids from school.
I used to live reasonably close to Essendon Aerodrome, and I used to ride my bike over to the Essendon Aerodrome and sit on the fence and watch aircraft fly in and out of Melbourne. So eventually I applied for A&A Airlines and got a job there as an air hostess. And I applied for a move to Sydney, which I gained, and from there on I lived in Sydney and I never went back to Melbourne to live. We used to go overnight various places and stay there. You know, it was considered quite a glamorous job to be an air hostess. We lived in a flat in King's Cross. The very elderly gentleman owned it, and he used to be quite happy for us to have overnighting pilots in Sydney stay in the unit, sleeping on the floor, which was more comfortable for them to then get up early in the morning and go back to where they came from. Living in the Cross was quite a good thing to do. It's probably one of the periods of my life that I enjoyed most. Everything was available in the Cross that you needed at odd times. You know, you could get transport, you could get food, you could go to a coffee shop. I met Dennis because of pilots coming and staying in our place because they would all decide they were going to have a party. They didn't ask you, they just said we're going to have a party. I met Dennis, he was one of the pilots, very scratchy. I didn't like him. I met him a couple more times in the daytime and gradually started to go out with him.
And subsequently I came down from New Guinea and we were married, and we lived in a little hut in a place called Goroka in the highlands of New Guinea initially.
Went from the coast in Ley up to the highlands on the first day we were there. And so it was a case of being in King's Cross one day and the highlands in New Guinea the next. It was a great posting being up there. We had a good time. He enjoyed flying up there. I flew all over the highlands with him and down to the coast. And I really liked Madang as a place to live. Our house was on a golf course. There was also a plantation, and you'd hear coconuts falling on the roof at night. Dennis extended his posting and was made the chief pilot for New Guinea, and we had Carolyn. So because we were spending another 2 years in New Guinea, we also had Joanne, so that I then had the 2 children to look after. We had the posting in Goroka, which was a lovely place. The climate was beautiful. In winter, the rain came up the valley at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was winter. It was about 25 to 30 degrees all the time. We talk one talk, which means your one talk is your friend, and in your same tribe, and you speak the same language. If you go long way, lick, lick, you go a long way. If you go lick, lick, long way, you go a short distance. Strange things like that.
When I finished my final year in New Guinea, I was the senior pilot in Ley, and I guess I'd reached the end of my experience in that field, and I had accumulated quite a few hours as a pilot in command of an aeroplane. So back to Sydney and the international scene.
The whole family was transferred back to Sydney, and Dennis went back to flying to Singapore, to Rome, to London. And after we'd been home for a while, he accepted a posting to London, which meant we all went over there. I had the twins in England. Because we had them while we were there, we stayed for 4 years. So we could really get to know England and Europe.
Allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé.
I think that of favourite places to go, Venice was one, Rome another, Paris, because it was so easy to just drive across. Then I started skiing. It was something we went too late. Dennis and I were both in our 40s when we learned to ski, and I found that I enjoyed it immensely. And I joined the Ski Club of Great Britain, so that in winter, after we'd come home to Australia, I would go over in English winter and European winter and go skiing with my English friends.
I'll light the fire, you place the flowers in the vase.
Well, we owned a house in St Ives in those days. The girls started at Ravenswood. Carolyn finished school. Joanne was still at Ravenswood. Carolyn had married an Englishman and was living in England. Joanne had galloped up the north and was riding horses. and was there for quite a while, so I got used to not having either of the older girls and only having the two younger ones at home. The twins were much more difficult than the girls were, but not too bad. And they were fun because they liked to get involved with things. It was just finding something to keep them occupied that was the difficulty. I've always gone to church and Sunday school as a child, and a friend in the country and myself were going to be missionaries at one stage. But I've never experienced a feeling like the one I had in the morning when I woke up in Jerusalem, that it was like coming home, that you'd come to where Christ had lived, as though he was reaching out to you and bringing you into a close relationship. And so while we were there, as well as going around the various areas where Paul and Christ had gone, we had the opportunity of buying baby trees and planting them. And so all my children, all four of them, have a tree in Israel. Well, I think that I have had a wonderful life. I had a wonderful childhood in the country where you were free, not ordered all the time. I've travelled. I have wonderful grandchildren. I just think that I have had far more of the good things in life for which I can thank God than things which are bad. And that is really something to be able to say, I feel.
Unforgettable. That's what you are. Unforgettable. Though near or far, like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before someone been more unforgettable. In every way, and forevermore. That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that I am unforgettable.